what is it that I do and how is it I told it to my consultant? So the first stage of this framework, the first part of the healthcare experience that I always look at in myself and I look at in my clients when I work with them is their team. And I say team, healthcare team, yes, your professionals are super important. That's inside MEN1 and outside of MEN1 too. So if you're working a bit like me with functional medicine doctor or therapists, physiotherapists, anything like that. But it is not just those professionals, it is also your patient community. So the people you surround yourself with who are going through what you're going through, crucially that they're like-minded, because when you are surrounded by like-minded people and you're reading off the same page, your quality of conversation is infinitely better and you're going to go so much further than when you're being kind of dragged down by a lot of the time the very negative dialogue that goes around in circles. And I'm also talking about personal relationships as well, so specifically friends and family. Like, who are the people who make you feel amazing? Who are the people where, like, you spend a day with them and you're like, oh my gosh, I am so glad that I had that day with that person, or I went for coffee with that person because I feel amazing inside. So you're not imagining that. Like, the body is like, yes, this is good energy, a good person. Those people make up your A-team. And it is, as I say, not just about professionals, but surrounding yourself in all areas of your life with amazing people. And the reason it's so important to start in this area, primarily because in MEN1, when the diagnosis comes, we find ourselves in kind of subsumed into a certain healthcare system and into a healthcare team. It's very important that you don't feel as though, and I had to work on this as well, that I was stuck necessarily with those consultants or those practitioners, and that also I looked around. And the same again with my patient community, that just because I landed myself in a Facebook forum didn't mean that those were necessarily my people, or just because we had the same diagnosis. And likewise, just because I'd had a friend since I was 5 didn't necessarily mean that that was a healthy friendship to be pursuing. And it's all about being super conscious. When you build your A-team, when you've got a group of people who support you and are on the same page, what happens in your life multiplies, because you have not just your own motor, but you've got their motor as well. And people come in and they say to me, oh yeah, like I've got like quite a good relationship with my consultant, but I'm struggling with this thing. It's so important to address that first, to look at building the A-team first, because when you are not surrounded by people who support you and lift you up, and bearing in mind we're generally surrounded by humans every single day, that brings us out of a state of ease. And when you're not in ease, you're in dis-ease. And that is super duper important. That's why I start there. So if you're tuning in, and just pop like a wave or something in the chat, if you're tuning in and you don't feel as though in any of those 3 areas I mentioned, patient, community, professionals, and personal relationships, if you don't feel like there is someone in that group of people supporting you completely, they gotta go. And if it means finding a new healthcare team, literally, so be it. Okay, the next stage of this framework, as I explained it to my consultant, who, by the way, was fascinated when I told him that I put this much concerted effort into individual parts of this journey. And the reason being because I've had to have awareness and a consciousness of what's going on. Otherwise, it becomes an autopilot thing, and health on autopilot doesn't get better. The next part of the process is what I call empower yourself, and that's self with a big S and almost a separate word. So the way that MEN1 is dealt with in the conventional realm, I've found, and understandably so, is very much as a problem with a set of possible solutions, and it's all done very analytically from kind of the level of the head. And what I found was coming into this healing work, I had to connect with different levels of intelligence in order to be able to get to where I am now. And when I say different levels of intelligence, I meant that I had to step out of my very academic self and not look at MEN1 so much as a problem to solve, but more something that was going on a little bit on like a deeper level. And it is quite literally a physical disease in the body, but it's fascinating how much we approach it from the level of the mind. And in terms of empowering yourself, it's very difficult to empower yourself when you don't feel as though you're in charge of your healthcare. And this is where it links back to building your team, because every team needs a leader. But in order to be a leader, you have to show up as a leader. And you can't do that when you don't feel like you're in the driver's seat of your healthcare. And I didn't feel like that at all. I would ask questions, but very often I just nod along and kind of, go with whatever the doctors were saying. And that didn't get me anywhere. And then I started looking into different ways of managing my health alongside MEN1, and I discovered different paths and so many different modalities that I've used, just to name a few: yoga, meditation, theta healing, all sorts of different things. Journaling is like a massive one. What they all have in common is that I ended up looking at myself and spending a lot of time with my own thoughts, my own beliefs, and realizing that actually when I didn't feel like a leader, when I didn't feel in an easeful place, the decisions I made about my health were on the same frequency. So I wasn't getting a certain frequency of result that I needed. So when I showed up anxious and frustrated or confused or hiding, the result I got was exactly the same level. Whereas, it's sticking, thumbs up. Whereas when I did all these self-awareness practices, and I sat with myself and I looked at myself and I was like, wow, if those are the thoughts that are going around my head every day, and my thoughts are feeding into the beliefs I have about MEN1 or about anything else, and then that is the area from which I make a certain quality of decision, that's not going to get me to where I want to be. That's not how leaders show up. I'm talking about having confidence, the confidence to be able to disagree potentially with my doctors, the confidence to be able to ask a question when I might feel like an idiot, the confidence to say this is where I want to go. And it took me ages to get this, but the results I have in this letter are because I am now able to walk into a consultation and lead that consultation, not be led. And that's what's so important. And it is very, very difficult to do that before you've learned to empower yourself. So that is why that's the second stage of the framework. It's build your A-Team first, and then it becomes empower yourself. And I say self with a big S. And I talk about self like that. You'll see me do it in all of my content. I'm talking about the thoughts that you have, what goes around your head, the beliefs that those thoughts create, and then the emotional home that you have as a result of that. Because what is going on up here and the beliefs you have about yourself or the world or anyone else around you ultimately dictates the way you feel inside. And the way you feel inside is how you then show up in the next moment. And that, for me, has been probably one of the most crucial aspects of this healing journey. Stage 3, this is the one that everyone loves. I call this one Create Your Health. And it is stage 3 because genuinely none of these things will make a difference without first having a really solid A-team, and secondly, without empowering yourself. Creating your health, that is about making fundamental changes from the level of yourself, so on a personal level, that bring you a different set of results in your life. So let's break this down. I am talking, yes, about some of the more cliche topics like food and diet, but it has a massive impact. So that might be the foods you choose to eat, but also not just that, like what is your behavior around food and what's your relationship with food? Any supplements that you might choose to take as well, if that is a path that you want to go down. And that's a huge one, and it's been massively commandeered by an unregulated industry, mostly trying to sell us things. And when you come in and you follow a framework like this, you already have an A-team. You might have a professional guiding you in the area of your food or your diet. You are confident in yourself, you're less shakeable, you are less nervous about making decisions, about making the wrong decisions. Then you are able to make the right decision. And the right decision leads to the right result, and that's unique for you. So that could be, as I say, in the area of food and diet. The other big one is a lifestyle. So quite literally, what is the style of life you want to have? What is the way you want to live? Underneath that, let's think about exercise, sleep, all of those sorts of things, which in my experience have absolutely transformed my MEN1 progression. There is no way that we can separate general health and MEN1. It's just not possible. And it doesn't make logical sense either, because the body is a complete system. It's not split up into the systems in which it's treated. And the third area of Create Your Health is my environment. It is my environment. It is what I choose to have around me, quite literally, and that includes people as well. But I'm talking about, okay, what do I put on my skin? Am I bathing in chemicals every day, which most beauty products are? What else? What am I cleaning my home with? What do I like to do out in nature? And these things I've just mentioned, diet, lifestyle, environment, they are the areas that people go to first because they're most tangible. We love doing, we love changing things. But the reason that I do it like this, in this process, in this framework, is because in my experience, when I went straight to the supplements, when I went straight to the organic sun cream, when I went straight to the toxin-free materials and clothes, I just wasn't seeing I just wasn't seeing change. It was inconsistent. When actually I went back to the beginning and I worked out, right, I need people around me who know what they're talking about on a professional level. I also need like-minded patients who are doing what I'm doing, and I need friends and family who are going to support me. Amazing. I then needed to be in a place where I felt confident with my health, where I knew what I was doing, where I was educated, and that meant looking at me internally, what was going on, because ultimately confidence is about knowing yourself. My mentor says it's a byproduct of knowing yourself. And in order to know yourself, you have to become aware, and you have to really sit with what goes on up here and what goes on here. And then once I created that feeling of I can be a leader of my A-team, I can lead myself through this journey, and I know how to make the right decision for me, that's when it's the right time to approach creating your health, to approach what is all the external stuff. Because we call food internal, it's not, because it's external, we just put it inside us. The internal stuff, the emotions, the beliefs, and the thoughts. The external stuff, yes, that's, food, beauty products, cleaning products, nature outside. That is a whistle-stop tour of a healing process that I have now been applying to my life for 5 years. It has got me to being 8 years surgery-free. I am completely asymptomatic in MEN1, and I am watching my results come back stable. And I, as I say, it's here, that letter. I sat in a consultation room with my endocrinologist, who was fascinated. He let me have an hour to just tell him what I was doing, and we discussed it and we talked about it. And he has his opinion, and I'm like, that's okay, I've got my opinion. Let's see how we can work together. Again, build your A-team. That is where to start. And if there's one piece of advice, not advice, but if there's one thing I want to leave you with, it's start there. Build your A-team. Look at who you've got around you. Professionals, patient community, personal relationships. 3 Ps. So easy. MEN1, 3 Ps. Parathyroids, pancreas, and pituitary. Now think about professionals, think about patient community, and think about personal relationships. That is where to go first. Sort that out first, and then come back, and you're already on a healing journey. It is so cool to be on here and sharing. If any of this resonates, then feel free to leave a comment and tell me exactly what it is. One thing. I can't wait to read them back. If you have any questions, you're welcome to pop them in the comments below. And I did promise I was going to share something exciting. So if you've stayed until now, super cool.